Thank you. That's like a lullaby to our hearts. Thank you. And then you went, woo, and I thought, it's a woo-woo song. Yeah, it's so awesome. What do you think of this voice, huh? Yeah. So, I'm here to talk to you, to share with you, to feel you in this moment as we kind of dance around the ideas of dominance versus tolerance. And we are wrapping up some of Wayne Dyer's wisdom in the Sacred Self. This particular chapter has a lot of information for us on where we are in the more difficult aspects of our spiritual journey. And I struggled this week with these two words, dominance and tolerance. They're not my normal vocabulary. And I found the words that fit more with my heart was the principle of equanimity. Equanimity is a Buddhist idea. It runs its beauty through all faith paths. But it's the idea about maintaining composure and balance, being calm in all situations, that impartial mental state amid life's continuous changing conditions. It's when we're not shaken by pleasure or pain, when we're not shaken by gain or loss, we're not shaken by blame or praise, fame or obscurity. We just are, and we receive it with grace, and our heart stays open. It is a state that I believe personally that all of our spiritual practices are longing for us to take a seat in, to be that, into that place of not trying to dominate, not just tolerating things, but being at peace. And when we're in peace, we're in love. And when we're in love, we're in peace, equanimity. It just flows. So I begin with the ideas starting there as I reflect on the quote from Wayne Dyer, I am aware that I do not need to dominate anyone in order to be spiritually awake. I do not need to be right. And that's a tough one to put down sometimes when we want to be so right, when we really feel that we are, when we feel that our life values are more right than another's. But we must begin where we are and recognize everyone is where they are. And hand in hand and heart to heart, we're making this journey of humanity, a journey into diversity. So there's no need in that space to have to control anyone, which is a wonderful space of freedom. There's a story that I was reminded as I was looking at this about how easy it is to be thrown off balance. And it's this clever little story about a lady in Kansas City who walked into her favorite ice cream store and ordered her favorite ice cream cone. And you know those moments when you're waiting to have it be delivered and you're watching them pile it on and you kind of look around thinking, I'm getting more than anybody else. She turned around and she found herself face to face with Paul Newman, who happened to be in the town doing a film shoot. She was so flabbergasted by being face to face with Blue Eyes that her knees started to wobble and she just turned back to get her ice cream and get her change and bolted. She got outside and trying to regain her composure, she realized, I won't have my ice cream cone. So she went back inside only to face Blue Eyes again. Paul Newman looks right at her and says, are you looking for your ice cream cone? Yeah, I am. wobble knees, wobble knees. You put it in your purse. You put it in your purse with your change. And I thought, that's those moments, you know? I was so amused by that because that's a clever, sweet way to put the story, but there's other moments where suddenly we're like, you know, and like, are you looking for your composure? Yes, I am. Or you left it outside because you're certainly a witch right now. You know, and it's just like, that's how quick. And I want to respect, I see Reverend Barbara Leger here. And she's doing great work on our planet. And she is working with the Ukraine in such a beautiful way. And her whole process is be peace. And she has this lovely, we're going to be printing some up, a lovely brochure on just how to do that. How to be peace. How to walk away with your ice cream in your hand. So, you know, see Barbara, she's here, she can raise up her hand. I think many of you know her, but ask her about that because she's in a part of the world where there would be a language barrier, certainly for me, a different culture. They didn't have the same privileges that we did, so they see things differently. And to build our groundwork of peace from that is pretty awesome work, Barbara. So we bow to you for the courage it takes. And how many years it's been? It's 18 years. 18 years. And you know what? When we hear just news come our way, it always isn't pretty. But she knows a greater story. She knows the bigger story. So where do we find our composure in life's changing drama? When we're surprised by a circumstance or we're so suddenly triggered. We can start with the day with our hearts so wide open. We've spoken about this time and again. And the spiritual practice of equanimity is this invitation to create a balance of spacious insight into the constant change of the nature of all things. We can do this through going to silent retreats. You can do it by making the choice to not speak when you recognize you're suddenly touched in that way. You can go to various insight meditations to really explore the concepts that we speak of here, not just to let it be something that you heard somewhere, but you start to apply it in your walk of life. This idea of accepting a life free of judgment, free of attachment, free of having to be right, accepting what comes our way without attachment and judgment is probably one of the biggest challenges we would invite any of you into. Because it's a walk, I believe, that we're all on. And I am watching the evolution. We all are. We're observers of the evolution of consciousness. We're at such a privileged place. And we're doing this heart to heart. And we come to one another and we share with one another, I really blew it today. I'm not there today. And you share and somebody listens with their heart and you're able to find your ground again without judgment, without having to measure yourself against anything, but just being honest, the times that we're just not there. So this mindfulness into spaciousness, I love that term, spaciousness. Stephen Levine speaks of that so beautifully, and he shares, Stephen Levine is a spiritual teacher, primarily Buddhist. But he shares, Christ said, judge not, lest ye be judged. And the more we exercise the judging mind on others, the more forcefully that judging mind will be encouraged to appraise each of our actions. Every time we slip into it, it's more easily triggered the next time. The best means of diffusing the judging mind is simply to non-judgmentally recognize it as it occurs. So here I go. So he said himself, a few years ago, I noticed it in public places in my mind would suddenly begin judging strangers in the room. Have you done that? Everybody's going, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to let her know. But judging strangers in a room. It was an automatic, rather annoying process cultivated over years of competing and comparing myself. It seemed to be a way of maintaining my presence in the room. It was ridiculous, but it was happening much of the time. It was particularly noticeable in restaurants when I would overhear the people in the next booth. I was quite critical of their communication, of who I imagined they thought they were. I noticed how superior I believed I was. The mind was hypnotically running off in its judgmental quality. So I watched, and I didn't suppress it. I just noticed what it was doing. I watched it insult me and the other people next to me in a single swipe. As I worked with this judging quality, I saw how awareness and growing sense of cosmic humor cut through this rather sticky mind state and weakened its authority. I experienced its voice getting weaker and weaker, and it lost its potency. Though occasionally I still notice my mind judging conversations from the next booth, it has less pull. I watch it run out of its habitual momentum. There we are. That's the practice. We recognize, we watch where it goes, and we let it go. We don't take it home with us and share the story about how such and such was so-and-so, how they behaved. The opportunity is before us every moment. Every moment is asking for us to wake up, to find a place where we are free from judgment and the attachment to our story about it. And when we learn this idea, truly this deep idea of letting go and allowing ourselves to walk a life without attachment and judgments and move into that spaciousness of no struggle, we're set free. We're set free into a heart of compassion and empathy. We're set free into celebrating diversity, celebrating other people's ideas, and relaxing and finding where love can prevail and where love can shine. And as we polish every situation with the gloss of love, as we allow ourselves, I'm not leaving this till I feel love again in my heart, we can sit silently with that and allow it to be the prayer. Suffering occurs when we desire things to be different than what it is. Equanimity will create the spaciousness of openness, and there, in that openness, there's where your solutions start to come into your view, into your intuition, into your higher calling. And there's an interesting way you can express your view as a more gentle way, saying something like, I didn't enjoy such and such, versus that was the worst thing ever. You know, there's a way to diffuse your judgment and let it be kind of heard, where the other person isn't suddenly just defending. It's a subtle difference, but when we allow it to be offered with heart and space around it, we become more present in these conditions. The difficult becomes more pleasant, and the challenges, we recognize there's a piece of joy there. Alan Locus is a gentleman that he has a little book called The Pocket Path of Peace, and he shares this: a trust that receives the world, a trust that receives the world in all its conditions, knowing that all is as it has to be. Oh, can we trust that big? Can we receive our world, the information coming to us? Can we receive that, knowing it has to be this way? Knowing that it all has to be doesn't mean all is as we would like it to be, or that all that it is pleasant or fair. It doesn't mean that. It means all circumstances are born of a cause and a condition that preceded and accompanied them. To change what is unpleasant and unfair, we need to change the cause or condition. This is Science of Mind 101. What we are experiencing in our global consciousness are ideas that were planted, that we left unattended, that are now in the fruition, and we have an opportunity to receive that now and allow our new thought. Here is where the power of our teaching comes into play. Our new thought creates the conditions we know brings peace to all beings. A path of love, a path of peace. So holding the thought of equanimity guides us with appropriate action. We become balanced with kindness, balanced with the inner wisdom. We begin to feel compassion even in the face of great suffering, without being taken to our knees, without being devastated. And I share with you, many of you, that place where some of the news is so unbearable. How can humanity do this to humanity? Oh my God. And yet, out of that rises solutions, rises an understanding of what is the call for here. A greater love, a greater sense of compassion, greater empathy, keeping our eyes and our hearts open. So nothing will get better by us staying unhappy. So let's start at the invitation to guide ourselves with loving kindness, to guide our way with wisdom. Remembering that base, that past actions, past beliefs has brought us here. Current actions and beliefs that we create now are going to create our future. That's exciting. That should stir you in your seat to realize I have the power of my word, by the power of my attention, I can make a change. I can be the catalyst. I can be the one. I can be the one. And it begins in that loving, compassionate space. So we decide not to be tossed around by all these events, to not just rely on impressions, perceptions, and interpretations. Go deeper. As Damien read so beautifully, let us focus on the qualities of the divine and allow ourselves to realize, as I influence my behavior, as I allow my daily word, my daily prayer to be based on love and power and beauty and trust and light and truth. A deeper truth, not my way, but a deeper truth that harms no one. We create a greater world. Anytime we feel pain, recognize it, because it's a tightening of a grip of something claiming to be, trying to be free. So we keep our hearts so awake. Yogananda's favorite saying to all his disciples and devotees, how does God find you today? Awake and ready. Let that be as you turn and you find your awakening. The light of the day is changing and shifting. I am awake and I'm ready. And allowing my heart to be bathed in a simple act of truth and love. Alan says this, I am kind, I am loving, I am thoughtful, I am gentle, I am compassionate, I am generous to all beings, including myself. I can love everyone, even if I don't like everyone. I love it when they put that kind of stuff in there. I can do that. I don't have to like everything, but I can love deeper. I can allow the thoughts of my of my way to be words that are going to manifest as deeds. This is a saying that they attribute to Buddha or Gandhi. They're not quite sure who has ownership of these words. But think about this. The thought manifests as a word. The word will manifest as the deed. The deed develops into habit. Habit hardens into character. So watch the thought and its way with care out of concern for all beings. Watch your thoughts for care for all beings. So as I return to the ideas of tolerance, this idea was shared, these beautiful quotations. By tolerance, I don't mean accepting or adopting another's ideas or behaviors willy-nilly, but I believe that it means to embrace a principle as long as that person's bad ideas and bad behavior does not initiate or threaten physical violence against me. I can refrain from threatening or initiating violence against them. It's very necessary in that moment of discernment, of finding our way. Looking at ourselves, how can we flourish in this changing society? Listen to these beautiful quotes on tolerance. Albert Einstein, laws alone cannot secure freedom of expression. In order that every man present his views without penalty, there must be a spirit of tolerance in the entire population. We want freedom of speech, so we honor that opportunity. Emerson says, men are respectable only as they respect. Begins with our hearts first. Jane Goodall, let us develop respect for all living things. Let us try to replace violence and intolerance with understanding and compassion and love. The beauty of the wisdom of the way as we find our way into truth, into understanding tolerance, understanding what does it mean to be dominant versus tolerant. This idea is to invitation, we're going to do a spiritual practice together. Because there's this idea, which I really appreciate, is when we find it easy, right? When we're with our friends, it's easy. When it's with somebody neutral, indifferent, not so challenging either. But with an enemy, and I call it enemy, anything that closes the heart, anything that constricts our way, closes that spaciousness, is an enemy of the heart. Seems like a hard word. But as we look into exploring ourselves from this way, we ask ourselves, how did I get here? So as we go into this meditation together, I invite you to think of those three. You pick out your three, and you discern a little bit about those three. And let yourself begin with your friend, your most beloved, easy friend. And feel your heart. Close your eyes and feel the spaciousness. How did they get there? How did that chosen one get to be there? What is it that they did to have so much respect to be called your friend? How did they get there? And you breathe. And you bring in that neutral person. How did they get to be there? This person, this clerk at a store, I've seen them before. There's a familiar sense. I have no idea anything about their life. Why is that? What would love to hear? And then when you go to the enemy, already even saying the word, my heart starts to close. I can feel my light field, my energy draw in. But I breathe. How did they get here? What are they doing? What are they doing that I cannot feel the same love as I did for the friend? What is it? And have the empathy for yourself to recognize, I just can't go there. Not right now. But I will hold that longer until there's space around the enemy, till they become more neutral, till they progress into my heart space, and I feel safe, and I feel willing to allow them to join me in that field. There's a gentleman that states this, Russell Simmons: the world will become what we envision it to be. And if we are fearful and we think we should tense up and prepare for an ongoing battle, then that is what we're going to have. But if we're open and we prepare for promoting dialogue and love, for a better understanding of each other, for tolerance and so forth, that's what the world's going to become. More tolerant, a more loving place. So each individual that stands up is a part of a bigger prayer. Just knowing that you're a part of a bigger prayer makes my heart open wide. So let's allow ourselves the practice of equanimity, the practice of being kind and loving, thoughtful and gentle, compassionate and generous to all beings, including yourself. The hardest one is the self. And before I go into having Judy come up and offer a prayer, music for a prayer, William Martin says, my worst enemy. For the past 10 years, Jake had been in a state of almost constant torment over the way he'd been treated by a business rival. That man cheated me, slandered me, and stole from me. He would complain to anyone who would listen. He ruined my life, and it still lurks around, looking for new ways to make me miserable. He's my very worst enemy. Jake tried everything he could think of to get rid of this enemy. Short of violence, he started rumors. He complained to the Attorney General. He considered taking the man to court, but didn't expect the expense of legal fees. One day, Jake was walking home from his office when he saw a strange-looking shape sitting on the top of a pile of garbage on an open trash can. It seemed to be some sort of ceramic pot or vase. It was covered with dust, but he could see that the workmanship was of high quality, and his curiosity took over, and he lifted up the vase and began to brush off all the dirt. Powerful voice vibrated in his ear. You have inquired of the sacred vessel. Whatever you wish will be granted to you without delay. Jake almost dropped the vase in fright. He stood for a long moment, looking around to see if anyone was watching. Anyone else hear that voice? No one around. Well, boomed the voice. Something in Jake knew that this vase was a truly sacred magic vessel. Softly, he said, whatever I want, anything. Anything. Without further hesitation, Jake blurted out, I want my worst enemy to be destroyed. Kapow! A bolt of lightning split through the air and reduced Jake to a pile of cinders smoldering on the ground. Sometimes we're our worst enemy. You know, I don't know how many of you put yourself there when you traveled that way. But the Tao mind says, conflict does not separate me from myself. It shows me how I have learned to be afraid. It teaches me a different way to be and returns me to my Tao mind, to the one mind, where I find my enemies have become my honored teacher. Oh, we've got some work to do. We do. But I believe in us. So let's join together as we connect with the one power, the one truth, the one guidance that never fails us. Let us breathe there. Feel yourself in the intimacy of this prayer as you lay yourself down into the arms of the one. Allow yourself to be cradled by a deeper love that is so unconditional, that does not hold anything against you for being stubborn and wanting your way. We put it down, we let it go, and we merge with this beautiful, glowing, loving heart. Feel it as the mother holds the child. The divine is holding you, and you can do no wrong. We are humbled in our clumsiness, in humanity. Yet we rise to the power of our divinity. And something new stirs inside of us. There is a passion that we are the instruments of change. We are the ones being called for to love in a greater way, to leave every debate, every situation with the thought of hope and love. And as we allow ourselves to walk in this path of peace, the still small voice becomes a louder voice, and it becomes our voice, speaking to humanity and being love itself. It can show up as silence. It can show up just by taking the moment to quiet your way and just be with another and hold them as you've been held. Here we find our way. It's through love. So I give thanks. I give thanks for each and every one of you. I know our journeys bring on the challenges. Bring them on. They're our teachers. And we lean into one another to continue to find our way. It's what love does, and we find it here. I release my word, knowing it's your word, knowing it's the one word, knowing that we're held. Can you feel it? Open yourself to that spaciousness and walk in the light of love. And so it is. Thank you.